one of these days.
Okay.
Welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is the amazing Donna Carlin. Donna, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to this. I think that these are topics that we need to talk about, like the 360 view of what we're dealing with.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um,
This one especially, I think, is going to be fun because I actually kind of just participated in sort of a little mini break. So, what is our topic for today? And let's dive in.
so the topic is, why is taking a break important for making a breakthrough?
Yeah. This is going to be fun. I like this because I think it's something people think about. I think in Canada you guys call it holiday, right? We call it vacation down here. People they seem to work 100% towards having that little respite from work, the little day off here or there, or the vacation. But I think this is a little bit more meaningful for the folks that we're talking to, our audience, that we hope that you kind of walk away with a different perspective about why taking a break, walking away from something that may be a project or, work problem that you've been dealing with, being able to, remove yourself from that situation for just a little bit has such a huge impact on what progress you might make when you come back, right?
That's it. It's really funny. I co authored a book with many authors years ago about 101 ways to improve your life. And my piece was joined with Zig Ziglar's, where he talked about clearing off his desk and making sure everything was put away and that nothing was left undone before his vacation. Why can't we do that all the time?
Yeah.
And my response was, because you would kill your assistants and they would kill you in return. Because it's just not energy that you could expend on a
Sure.
regular basis. And Carlos Santana, who I adore,
Yep. Me
talks
too.
about pressing the pause button. He was interviewed for the Five Keys to Mastery. And in that program, which we're revamping right now, he talks exactly about that. When is the last time you pressed the pause button so you could see the bigger picture? How's
Interesting.
that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's you have to push it in order to see that bigger picture, but how often do we consciously think about doing those things? So is that something he attributes to his genius and in the success that he's had ultimately, being able to come up with this incredible work. Does he literally take a break from the noodling of the music and the composition of the process, I'm really fascinated about what you learned from this conversation.
It's more about he believes that everybody has genius and the raw willingness to be so unique and so impactful. But until you press the pause button, you can't have that breakthrough because you're so tunnel visioned towards something. I mean, he was washing dishes, he was living at his mother's, and finally he said, pause. In order for me to get to where I want to go, I need to absorb what it is that I want to learn. And he learned from BB King and all the other
Yeah,
greats, jazz musicians, who unfortunately isn't around anymore, or we would have interviewed him again,
yeah,
for the update of the mastery. But you look at the ability to reflect on where you are within your life. If you can't do that and you don't press the pause button to have self reflection, you're going to be setting goals, possibly going towards a specific desired end result, and you might get there. You miss so much along the way. Breakthrough happens when you could think,
yep,
not do. It's when you think and you reflect and you see so much of what's out there that you don't have time to until you do press the pause button. I think it's a brilliant concept. And until we could say, whoa, what we worked towards maybe 10 years ago might not be relevant anymore.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think about, just that process because I think we are so action oriented, especially as business leaders, right? If we're not doing, we're not accomplishing, right? And there's this sort of misnomer about sitting still or taking a step back that you're not just as aggressively as hustling towards something, because, people can't see the progress, so they don't see you in your office at 6 a.m. and they don't see that, the work being done. And there is legitimately, I think, this misconception that, you know, doing anything makes it seem like you're actually doing something. And that's not actually true, right? Being able to take that break and take that step back, I think has a lot of value. I just recently started reading a book, and I don't have it with me, so I will misquote the title, but it's the art of doing nothing. And the
Yeah,
process, and I'll get this and I'll reference it, again on a future episode, but it has actually been an intriguing look at the process that artists go through. And artists can be, very wide reaching, right? Can be any medium, including musicians. And a lot of those genius moments come from, really ordinary moments. Taking a step back from the work, being away from the computer or the keyboard or the guitar or, the cello, and being able to take that step back and go be in nature, go take a walk, go do something like you said, kind of like, Carlos, like, I'm going to go wash the dishes. I'm going to go do my normal, typical activities, but during that time, I'm letting things percolate. I'm letting things sort of develop. And sometimes that's when the genius strikes, right?
that's right. Do you remember the TV show West Wing?
Yes.
So a lot of my clients lived that life in politics. And you can't even imagine the intensity of every minute of every day between, press releases going out, hot issues, people running in and out for advice,
Yeah.
everything that's going on to run a huge machinery of government is mind-boggling, especially when it's something like foreign affairs, with wars imminent or happening, whatever's going on. And I remember saying to my client, the only way we're going to be able to think straight at all is to get out of here. So what we would do is we would find the opportunity, because it was seconds before somebody would rush into his office to say, let's go. And we would walk along the water and we would just talk and he would reflect and just have some noiseless time in nature, definitely, but he wasn't bombarded with emails and texts and phone calls and people running in and out of his office. It was absolutely amazing, and that was our way of pressing the pause button. Get some fresh air, get some exercise. Tell your team that unless the world is coming to an end, don't bug me for the next 60 minutes at least, if
Yeah.
not longer, so that I could think and reflect on what really has to get done before I'm sidetracked.
Yeah.
And it was invaluable for him and for me in the work that I did with him.
Well, so, I guess and one thing actually before we move on, I did look it up really quick. The book that I referenced was How to Do Nothing: Resisting the Attention Economy. And it's by a Stanford professor, Jenny Odell, which is, like I said, this book is kind of opening up a completely new perspective for me in terms of the approach that, I take in my work and the importance of taking a break. But like you're mentioning right there with your client, the big value of that is taking that step away allows that natural conversation to occur, in those moments that you two are there. That's so critical and so valuable because it allows kind of that pause allows you to push that reset button. You have this tendency, and I think politics, just like the military, it's that fog of war, just that constant bombardment of stuff that's happening, decisions that are having to be made moment by moment, and those decisions have dire consequences. But you also don't want somebody that has that decision fatigue. You don't want to have that some person that is just trying to clear the decks, so to speak, to get things pushed out the door and done, because you don't get the best parts of them. And so I think, the interesting component there with what you do with your client is you removed them from that environment and
Yeah.
taking them into, kind of a different, situation altogether, being out close to the water, being able to be in movement, be in a process that allows a little bit more of a reset mentally. And then I'm sure, no doubt, knowing you how I do, there were some questions that were peppered in there to get that reset button more firmly pushed down. What were those if you don't mind sharing?
I can't share too much of those conversations
Sure.
for obvious reasons. I can share questions that I ask my corporate clients who are dealing with the same
Yeah.
stuff. And that is, when, if ever, have you met with your team to check in with them to see if collectively they believe that you're working on the right things that matter?
That you are as the leader.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
good.
the leader thinks that they are expected to set a direction.
Yeah.
And there is a mandate of pretty much every organization. This is what they're out to achieve. This is what they're out to sell. This is what they're out to create. Absolutely. For the sake of what question needs to be answered. If you're doing something just to do it for a fancy new shiny object, which has no applicability or purpose, then it'll be a shiny new object for a very short period of time. The other thing is, though, if you're doing work that has meaning, that's important, which I think every organization feels in
Sure.
their own way that they're doing important work. When have you gathered the troops and rather than speak at them, which is what happens in town halls and everything else, to say, this is what we're aiming for, this is why we're aiming for it, and the impact it's going to have. Are we on track? Are we working on the right things? And
Yeah.
what suggestions do you have for us to do it better, differently, or take a totally different route to get there?
Uh,
And, you know, the ones that do that not only start creating a strong connection with their teams because they're being heard, but they course correct on a regular basis to get exactly where they have to go.
yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, look at it from that perspective. Those are the questions to ask.
That's a powerful question for a leader for sure. What about, for us as individuals, just out here, whether we're working on a new book or we're working on a project or we're considering a new startup idea. I think the premise of today's topic, taking that break away from something that you've put all your energy and your effort towards, right? Putting so much focus on, taking that step back to be able to have that
Yeah.
breakthrough, I think is super critical. I was thinking it's kind of not a project per se, but I was asked years ago when my mom passed, my dad asked me to do the eulogy, and I had no idea how to do a eulogy. I was not super comfortable doing it, but I decided the day that I was going to figure out what I was going to say, I took a hike in the mountains, and I walked further than I probably have ever walked. But from the time I started to the time I got to the top and then came back, I had the eulogy completely in hand. And I didn't have paper. I didn't have, any way to record the notes. I suppose I could have, talked into my phone, but I didn't. I just allowed the freedom of just being able to go forward and think, without the constraints of anybody, saying, well, you've got to work this in, or you got to do this, or you got to talk
Yeah.
about this, right? Completely removed myself from the level of distractions and at the time grief, right? So that I could literally allow myself that space and opportunity to have that breakthrough. And, I think it came across, I'm biased, but I think it came across really well and allowed me to feel even more confident and comfortable than if I had been sitting at my dad's house behind a computer trying to, hammer out something onto a keyboard, right? So, I think, there's whether it's those personal situations that you find yourself in or those big things that you're wanting to work towards, that new career path, that new business startup idea, or you're just working on a project, sometimes just allowing yourself that time and space to move away from it for just a bit, you'll come back and be like, oh, there was that spark of genius. There was that spark of innovation or creativity, right?
You know, but when you go to sleep, your brain doesn't shut down. It's constantly going.
Yeah.
How often have you gone to sleep with this massive problem weighing on you and you wake up with this eureka moment because you have the solution?
Yeah.
That's because the brain has the ability to get rid of all the fluff and all the garbage
Yeah.
and come up with what is truly important. Pressing the pause button allows you to do that consciously, not unconsciously, so that you could do the same thing and have breakthrough.
Yeah.
So set
Absolutely.
an intention for the day, not a goal. Set an intention. Your intention is to stay present. Your intention is to create that pause in a chaotic life in order to do something or not do anything.
Yep.
There's nothing to be, feel guilty about if you don't do anything. It's critical to your mental and physical well-being to just absorb what's there. So next time you go for a walk, if you're going for exercise, slow down a little bit and acknowledge the people you're walking by.
Yeah.
Don't just count your steps. Remember, there's a world out there, and the most amazing opportunity just might come towards you because you've cleared the clutter.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah, cleared the clutter. I mean, it's that's a perfect way to end, on that thought. As our listeners and our viewers on YouTube, I mean, certainly we appreciate you guys tuning into these conversations, and we hope that we give you some insights, some things that you can walk away from and start to apply. And clearing the clutter is certainly one of those great ones to do for sure. So, carry it forward. Let us know how you're dealing with this, right? Let us know what types of, how you're taking your break and what type of breakthroughs that you've had. We'd love to hear it. Donna, maybe share with our listeners and our audience how they can, reach out to us and share some of their perspectives on this topic.
Well, as you could see in front of you, our websites are right underneath our faces here. So the best way to contact us is through our websites and share what you've been dealing with, what worked for you, what resonated. We'd love to hear that. Our Facebook page, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper, great place to
Yep.
suggest topics to discuss and to literally create, an ongoing conversation. We welcome that, and all kinds of social media, which you could have access to from our websites. The links are there.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we would love for you to participate. And like Donna said, on that Facebook page, we have a growing community. So we'd love you to be a part of that and share what you're taking away from these episodes, as well as maybe share any thoughts or questions that you might have that you'd like us to tackle in the future. So we definitely appreciate you joining us for another episode of Inquiring Minds. We will be back very soon with another important topic. But until then, Donna, have a great day.
You too.